30 days later, it's crunch time for classic Doctor Who fans like me who signed up for the Britbox UK trial. Should we stay or should we go? I'll tell you my decision if you tell me yours. Hello there, you extravagant Exelon. I'm Jason Arnopp, the author of The Last Days of Jack Sparks' new novel Ghoster, Doctor Who fiction like The Gemini Contagion, and Doctor Who non-fiction such as various articles in Doctor Who magazine over the years. If you're new to this channel, you might want to subscribe so as not to miss any future videos. This channel started out as a retro variety channel last February, but it's since kind of mutated into a classic Doctor Who channel with added retro stuff like horror movies on VHS or retro video games. If any of this sounds like your bag, then sign up. Okay, so Britbox. On Boxing Day, like countless other fans of classic Doctor Who, I signed up for a 30-day trial subscription with Britbox UK. This is a platform, it's a collaboration, in case you didn't know, between the BBC and ITV. It's a streaming platform which contains lots of both channel stuff. What made Boxing Day special, of course, was that was the day that a lot of classic Doctor Who landed on the platform. I think it was, wasn't it 267 chunks of classic Doctor Who to be precise? Yeah, pretty impressive. And so, lots of us piled in wanting to see all this stuff and how it worked and how the menu systems worked and whether we would want to stick with it long term. And now it's time to answer that question. So let's look at the pros and cons of Britbox. We'll take the pros first. The interface works quite well, I think, and Britbox seemed to have been quite fast to improve it. There were typos and other mistakes that seemed to have been quite quickly sorted out, for instance, and the navigation was improved a little bit, although it's still a bit weird. We'll cover that in the cons. Another pro is that there really is a great deal of stuff on there. As far as I can see, every fully existing Doctor Who serial is on there, plus plenty of serials that have received the animation treatment, such as Power of the Daleks and the Macra Terror. They're all on there. And there's even a story which has been reconstructed using telesnaps, aka still images from the story. And that story is The Wheel in Space, the Cyberman story, the Patrick Troughton Cyberman story. So that's on there, The Wheel in Space, which isn't available on disc. So that's a really nice feature on there and a definite pro. Another pro that comes to mind is that Britbox works across a variety of devices. Well, with one quite big exception that I'll get to in the cons, but it does work on my iPad. I mean, it didn't on Boxing Day, and a lot of other people had technical issues, but you know, they got ironed out, those problems, and most of us were on the free trial period anyway. So yeah, Britbox does now work on my iPad and desktop, and not my TV. So let's get into the cons right now. Britbox UK does not work on my TV. Now, on the last Britbox video I did, how to make Britbox work on your smart TV, the irony was that I could install the app, no problem, but I couldn't watch any content, not just Doctor Who content, but anything across all of Britbox. And I kind of thought that this might be ironed out and it would just automatically work when I tried again. But no, I've been trying again this week and nothing happens at all. I select a Doctor Who episode and try to play it and it just goes black. Same goes for anything else across the platform. So over the last 24 hours, as the trial extension date looms, I got in touch with Britbox's help department. They asked me a lot of technical questions about the TV, the make of TV, the version of the software I'm running on it, and they made a few suggestions, a few troubleshooting suggestions, such as uninstalling and reinstalling the Britbox app, turning the TV off, unplugging the TV, replugging the TV in, and then turning it on again, obviously, and trying Britbox again. Nothing, neither of those worked. They asked me to try and access Britbox via my browser on my TV, which is the rather antiquated Firefox, but I couldn't even log into Britbox via that browser, so that was a non-starter. So that's quite a big con, the fact that I don't mean a con, you know what I mean. I don't mean that Britbox are trying to pull a fast one on us. I'm talking about pros and cons. Yeah, you knew that, didn't you? Yeah. So that is a major issue. I can't watch Doctor Who on the TV. So what else is there in the cons department? The navigation still isn't quite perfect. You still have to scroll halfway down the interface, the Doctor Who interface, before you come to the orange menu screen, whereby you can then go to any episode you want. Whereas at the top of the whole interface, it's Doctor by Doctor, and within that, if you click on any given story, it will automatically start with episode 1. You don't get the option to drill down any further into episode 2, 3, 4 or 10 in the case of the Daleks Master Plan. Sadly, the Daleks Master Plan is not on there. Sorry if I made your heart skip a beat then. Maybe one day, who knows? Another con with Britbox is that it doesn't currently, as far as I can tell, offer offline viewing. So whereas the BBC iPlayer app, for instance, or Netflix, I think, lets you download a piece of content onto your actual device, say your iPad, other tablets are available, and watch it on a train without having to use your data allowance. Now, Britbox doesn't do that. You need the data on the train, and I would be watching stuff mostly on trains if I was going to watch classic Doctor Who content via Britbox UK. So yeah, that's quite a big con for me. That's a problem. Another problem with Britbox is that it doesn't quite have the amount of content you'd expect if you're paying $5.99, which is of course the same price point as Netflix on a monthly basis. Netflix seems to have so much stuff, even though that might be deceptive, I don't know really. But Britbox has a fair bit of stuff, but you know, when you drill down into the individual categories, it's not exactly, it doesn't seem to be endless, does it? You can certainly see the end of it. Yeah. Early days, but they're charging the same amount as Netflix, so they are going head to head with Netflix in that sense, or at least they're implying with a $5.99 price point that they're supplying the same amount of value as Netflix. Like it or not, Netflix has stuck its flag on a mountain and said, we are giving you this amount of stuff for $5.99 every month. And Britbox at the moment can't really compete. So you might have worked out what my decision is, given that I've just described more cons than pros. And you'd be right, I've decided not to renew my subscription and continue after this trial period. But let me explain why for a moment, because there are a couple of reasons other than the cons that I've described there. Yes, I mean, having said that, not being able to watch Britbox UK on my Panasonic TV, as I'm supposed to do, is a major problem. And that con I mentioned, the lack of offline viewing, that's another issue. I would imagine that Britbox might incorporate that in the future, hopefully the near future, and they might also iron out these technical difficulties with certain types of TV. Tell me downstairs in comments, by the way, if you've had problems like this. But as it stands, it's not quite enough to encourage me to continue. There's also, to be honest, a financial issue as well, because I'm just doing that New Year's thing of having to cut down on expenses. I'm actually having to move flat in 3 months, which is a rather painful thing after 10 years of being here. But I'll talk to you about that in another video, because I'm going to have to downsize and go through all my stuff and decide what to keep in a Marie Kondo kind of way. So hopefully you'll be entertained by some of that. So yeah, the reasons for my decision are: doesn't work on my Panasonic TV, no offline viewing, and I need to save money anyway. What are you going to do? That's the question, and that's what I would like to hear from you in comments. Get down there into comments, and if you've had a trial subscription at Britbox UK and you're a Doctor Who fan, or even if you're not, tell me if you're going to renew it and start paying for the Britbox UK service. By the way, I may go back to Britbox. I'm not saying I won't. I'm not saying it's a terrible thing. I like the content, I like the interface to a certain extent, and I like the fact that it exists. And also, to be honest, if they put Dragon's Den on there, which is one of my favourite shows, I will probably sign up straight away. That doesn't mean that I prefer Dragon's Den to Doctor Who, it's just that the Dragon's Den content is much less readily available elsewhere than the Doctor Who content. Anyway, look at me yakking. Get down there in comments and tell me your decision. In a moment, I'm going to show you a couple of my other Doctor Who related videos on YouTube that you might want to carry on watching. But before that, I want to give a big thanks to my Patreon patrons, those fantastic people who support the channel with a monthly pledge. Have a look down there in the video description if you'd like to join them and maybe get your name plastered along the bottom of a future video. And lastly, I'd like to thank you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again, I hope, and until then, don't forget to embrace your obsessions.